Hello, Twitch. How are you doing? It's Howdy Partner. I'm AM Grobelny. Welcome back. If you're joining us for the first time, this is a show normally where we talk with AWS partners from the APN or AWS Partner Network. And these are companies that fall into one or two categories, either ISVs or consulting partners. We can talk about the difference between those two things later. But we're not meeting with a partner today. We're actually meeting with my friend, best friend, gotta say, who got his job just watching Twitch shows. I'm pretty sure, right? Like that was your interview, wasn't it?
That's what it was.
You watched so many Twitch shows.
Yeah, some places ask for like, oh, how many GitHub stars do you have? Or they look how many green tiles you have. For me, they're like, okay, show me how many hours of Twitch you've watched. And I gave them my stats, and like that's a lot of channel points. Here's the job. They're gonna give me Jeff Bezos' job, but I was like, nah, like I'm good for now.
You want to keep that ceiling up there, right? So that you can keep striving.
Yeah, something to work for, yeah.
Totally. Who are you? Richard Boyd. Who are you?
I'm Richard Boyd. I'm a developer advocate for AWS Developer Tools. So this covers the code suite, code build, code artifact, code commit, code deploy, code pipeline, as well as the SDKs, the CDK, the toolkits, like AWS toolkits for JetBrains, for VS Code, Cloud9 IDE for our online editor, as well as Corretto, which is our open source Java JDK distribution.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's one or two others in there that I've forgotten about, and I'll get an angry email later today. Be like, how dare you forget, I don't know, something.
I'm sure your team's not watching. That's okay. Yeah, you actually mentioned one of the partners too. Man, my internet is struggling. Sorry. You're coming through clear though, crisp and clear. You mentioned a partner there with JetBrains. JetBrains is an AWS partner. So I wanted to have you on, not just because I like you and I like hanging out with you and I think you're very entertaining, but also because you work in an area that specifically ISVs and also consulting partners can really benefit from getting more knowledge in our developer tools. In the ISV's case, they're building software that they package and then sell to you, right? Like usually through a SaaS model, maybe a deployment model. And building that software in AWS, you need to use pretty much everything you just listed, right? Like, with maybe the exception of Corretto, maybe you're not using Java, but pretty much everything else. I don't know. Hey, look, I'm a C# dude. We don't have a CLR of our own. Totally get. But yeah, so from the consulting partner side, which probably we'll talk about more, using a lot of these tools also makes total sense as you're working on engagements with your customers. And specifically today, we're going to talk about code artifact, right? I think. Is that what you told me we're going to talk about? I mean,
we are going to talk about code artifact. We're going to talk about all of the codes. We're going to talk about several of those. We'll try to build a demo. We'll see how far we get. I did nothing to prepare for this, as I do for like almost everything that I'm expected to do. I was like, oh yeah, I can totally do that. And then like the day of, I get an email saying, can you do this? I'm like, oh sure, I guess I'm doing that today. I do want to point out that like, I guess Twitch or a webcam, something is making it different where on my side, it looks like you and I are like almost facing each other. But on Twitch, it looks like we're both facing off like this direction.
Sure.
I guess now
I can change that.
Yeah.
Can we change?
Oh no, that's fine. I was just like, it looks weird. Like on my side, we look normal, or like we look like we're facing each other having a conversation. But on Twitch, it looks like we're both just kind of like looking over there, talking to someone.
Hey Richard, how you doing?
Yes.
I keep freezing.
Did it switch? Okay. Oh, cool.
Yeah,
right, so I look this way. Is this working? There's like a bit of a delay, so I have to like wait for Twitch to. Okay, perfect, awesome. Now we look the same.
Yeah. I'm just staring into your eyes.
Yeah, it's like one of those like high five. Okay, but enough playing. Oh yeah, so there's a few things we could walk through. I'll let you pick kind of which you'd like to do. So one is a scenario you mentioned previously where let's say I own a business and I've got some code stored in Code Artifact. I've got some artifacts stored in there, and I want to give someone access, like some of these, I guess they're solution consulting partners who are like going to build something for me, and they need access to these, internal libraries, these internal packages that, they're proprietary. That's an internal library. Maybe it's our secret sauce for our page rank algorithm or something. I don't know. Like, can't think of a good example. Not nearly. Like, I should have used is your numerology app that you created before. But
yeah,
that's like. But that was a service.
Very proprietary. Yeah, but the code. I don't want anybody knowing that code.
Yeah, and this is where like a lot of people struggle with the mental model around Code Artifact is like the numerology service that you created. Like that was a service that you have some code, you package it up, and then when you deploy it to the infrastructure that runs it. So you're responsible for kind of like the ops load, and even though it's much less when you're using a serverless architecture, but you are running that in kind of infrastructure that you control to whatever degree you want to control it. So Lambda, you're putting some of that undifferentiated heavy lifting on AWS. You could put it on EC2 and have it run there if you wanted more control over it. But there's no software running like we call client side. And Code Artifact is generally for some of these libraries where it's I want to create and package up some piece of software, and then the clients, the consumers of this will pull this in and they'll run it kind of client side, as we call it. So it's slightly different than something like SAR that takes like this fully running application and kind of like templates it out and saves it. So it is a slight shift in the mental model that's used to describe this that it's important to keep in mind while we go through this.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So last time we used Lambda layers. The last Howdy partner build that we did, we used Lambda layers to show you how to build a Lambda layer as a partner. But with Code Artifact, I think it definitely plays into this. I have a library that I've built that I need to keep private, right? And maybe that could help set the stage for us, Richard. Maybe like just giving us a quick run through of what Code Artifact is, just as a customer of AWS, maybe not even a partner. How would I use Code Artifact? What am I doing with it? Type thing. What do you think?
Yeah, so it sounds great. Let's walk through some of like the terminology that we use. We have time to probably build like a small like sample application, and then we'll publish it into here, and then we'll talk about how to share it and make it available. I've got a couple of AWS accounts set up so we can show an example of this cross account kind of setup. We're also doing this live with no rehearsal, so like fingers crossed the cross account stuff works on the first try. There are also like these like special accounts that I created that like have other like SCP policies in place that I don't know about until like I violate one of them, and it's like you are not allowed to do this. So we'll see how it goes.
SCP, what's that?
SCP is the service control policy. Some kind of control policy. It's used through AWS organizations that allows you to put a policy on an account when you create the account to say, okay, everything that exists in this account like must conform. It's a IAM policy, so you can say like, if you want to be a serverless zealot, you can say deny all like star EC2 star, so you can't do any EC2 operations. I would not recommend doing that because there are other services that like use EC2 under the hood, EC2 APIs under the hood. So Lambda, for example, if you had that policy in place, you wouldn't be able to create a Lambda inside of VPC because the VPCs are an EC2 construct. So like you need to create an ENI. I mean, this was the case about a year ago. Maybe they've made some changes to abstract that away. But at the time when I tried this just to see if it would work, it didn't work because of some of these things. So although I'd recommend not doing that, it is a colorful example of what you can do with an SCP, where you can say no one's allowed to create any resources of this type, or everyone. You can't really do like everyone is because there's other denies that could override it, but it's good for like creating some good safe guardrails around accounts as they're created.
If you want to learn more about SCPs too, Andrew Brown, community hero, AWS hero rather, Andrew Brown led us through that in the AWS Community Voices show on Twitch. Did a bunch of stuff around AWS organizations. That's also very applicable to workloads that consulting partners in the APN are working against. Having multiple accounts as a customer, and then breaking those accounts out so that you have maybe just a sandboxed account area for your consulting partner to log into, or if you're the consulting partner managing multiple accounts for a customer, organization, very powerful tool that you should probably also look into. And Andrew taught us all about that on Community Voices.
Cool. Shout out
check
to
it out
Andrew.
after this show. After this show, don't.
After the show, don't turn off the show and go watch that. It's like the was it Austin Powers? It's like, if you watch one movie this summer, see Star Wars. But if you see two, watch our movie. So if you watch one stream today, watch our stream. Oh wait, forget I mentioned that. That was a bad reference. I'm gonna basically tell people to stop watching us.
I think they are. They're all leaving. They all left. So it's just me and you
nice. Now. Oh, yeah, cool. All right, so all the pressure's off. No pressure. High five. Okay. Now I got to make sure I match my color to yours next time, so it looks like we're in the same spot and we're avoiding the social distancing guidelines.
Right.
We actually are observing them. We are well over 6 feet apart. We are like 2,000 miles plus 6 feet apart.
Austin and Boston. I mean, that's how better does it get, right?
Oh yeah, that's. I feel compelled to mention the other Richard Boyd. So I am Richard Boyd, who does stuff in DevTools and DevOps for AWS. There was another Richard, and I live in Boston. There's another Richard Boyd who runs DevOps Days Austin. So there's the AWS DevOps Richard Boyd from Austin and the AWS DevOps Richard Boyd from, which one did I say? Austin or Boston? Like Austin and Boston. So it's a one letter, like it's one phoneme difference between those two. Cosmic Ray could flip a bit, and next thing you know, like it's like a Freaky Friday situation.
So tell us about Code Artifact, Richard. Whichever Richard Boyd you are. I have no idea which Richard Boyd you are. I hope I got the right one.
That's true. No, I've never done any of this before. I just got an invitation to come and talk, and I was like, sure, I'll talk about this stuff. And I used AWS for the first time yesterday, so I think I'm all set. Cool. Yeah, so I'll share my screen, and then we'll walk through a little bit on the console, and then we'll start writing some code or playing with the CLI.
We got you.
Okay, we're all set up.
Yeah, we've got Code Artifact in the console.
Oh, nice. Okay, let's do this. So when you first come to Code Artifact in the console, if you haven't created, the default landing page shows you kind of like the overview of how it works. I'm not going to go into all these details right now because we'll go into it as we talk about this. Some of the benefits and features, all of the great like marketing stuff where we spend a lot of time thinking about the exact way we're going to say region. That's a joke. We didn't actually spend that much time. We just copied and pasted it from another service. So first thing we do is we create a repository. This repository is not like a Git repository where it's like one piece of software to a repository, right? If you think about your favorite repositories that are in, say, GitHub or GitLab, it's a piece of software, and that ignoring any kind of like esoteric mono repo setup. These repositories are more like what we call like a registry, like kind of like Docker ECR kind of registry, where a repository holds the artifacts for many pieces of software. So we're going to create our first one. We're going to call this AM's what's it say? Repo. AMS repo. Yeah, and then description is optional, so we're leaving. Public upstream, this allows us to do what we call like a read-through behavior. So the options are PyPy, NPM, Gradle, Maven, Google Android Store. The idea is that if I request a package that's in one of these like upstream services, I don't have to like pick which, do I want to get this from Code Artifact or do I want to get it from PyPy? You can just make your request to Code Artifact. And if it's not in Code Artifact, it'll look in an upstream repository and say, do you have this? And if it does, it will pull it into your repository and then cache it to make it available, so you don't have to fetch it from there every time. So we're going to add PyPy as an upstream repository. You can add multiple. So these repositories, because they contain many pieces of software that could be written in many different languages, like you can publish an NPM package and a PyPy package next to each other in the same repository. So you're allowed to have, this makes it appear, how do I put it? Notionally, you can't have many of these. There's actually a technical limitation that keeps you from like strictly having many upstreams, but we kind of mask that for you in a way that makes it like look, I guess, a little bit better. And I'll show you in just a moment. Actually, we'll add this just to make it a bit clearer. So we're going to say that if someone does like a pip install and they're referencing this repository and we don't have that package, it's going to go to the upstream and PyPy and try and find it. If they do npm install and it's not present, it's going to go to the upstream and try and find it. And then it asks about where the domain is. So every repository has to be part of a domain. The domain is like the set of, it's a logical grouping of repositories where we do deduplication. So what this does is that because Code Artifact is built on top of S3, so we get a lot of S3's benefits of like high durability. You'll hear them talk about 11 nines, which is 99.11 minus 9 nines. So
you're gonna do 9, 9.
No, I was trying to figure out how many that would be. So I had 11 minus 2 in my head, like without like smoke coming out of my ears, because then it gets caught in headphones. And so it's 99 point and then 9 nines after that percent like durability. So somebody better at math could tell you, like, if you put in billions of objects, what fraction of an object would you lose over the course of 10 years, or however that math works out. That's a lot of nines. It's that's durability. That means the object will never be lost. There have been times when S3 was like unavailable, like the big US East 1 outage years ago that we publicly talked about, like what caused it and how we planned on fixing it. That's like an availability number. It's separate from the durability thing, but either way, like it's multi-region, highly available, highly durable, and that is a domain kind of wraps up all of our repositories. So what we do inside the Code Artifact service is we hash each file that's brought in. So if you bring in a Java package that has several jars in it, we'll hash each one of those jars, and if the hashes match another file, we'll only store one version of that. We just keep like the reference so that we deduplicate files, because you pay per like megabyte or per byte stored over the course of a month. If we can deduplicate that, we could cut your bill down like a fraction of what it would be if you were just directly storing them in S3. So if you only had one repository with like.
So I was just going to say, some of these packages can get really large, especially Python packages. Like if you're bringing in a bunch of all the ML tooling for Python, like those packages are pretty significant. So.
Yeah, and if you've got like a repository per, if you got a repository per team, repository per like organization, you've got a dev, test, staging, different types of repositories. You don't want to like duplicate those. You could duplicate those, and it gives you some isolation between these repositories and between teams. But you don't want to have to pay to store the same bytes many times. So if you just have a single repository with packages used by a single team, I think the math comes out to Code Artifact is about 3 times more expensive than just plain S3. But as soon as you start having more than one repository, more than one team, any kind of duplication, Code Artifact quickly like outstrips like the cost savings of using S3. And S3 is like dirt cheap to begin with. I mean, it's pennies per gig. Some very low number. Someone's probably going to yell at me for not having the right number off the top of my head.
Would you say
we're going to use? What's that?
Every bit helps. Would you say every bit helps?
Every bit helps. That's. If I could groan audibly, and be confident that Twitch would pick up on that audio, but every bit helps. Is this?
Okay.
I feel like you're trying to get me to say this so you can record it to use it as some like larger elaborate scheme you have planned.
I am. I'm trying to get like you to be the one who does the pun and not me. Okay.
Yeah. So we deduplicate it because every bit helps.
There you go. Perfect. That sounds right for this episode.
First try. Because we don't have we're saying we're going to use this account to hold the domain. We'll be like the owner of the domain, and there isn't a domain that already exists. We have to create one. So we're going to call this, Richard's domain. So inside of Richard's domain, we have AM's repo. And this tells you what the domain URL is. We'll need that later, but it'll present it to us again later for, if we need it. And then you can, the files are encrypted, like the things that you store are encrypted at rest. And you have a choice of using a key that AWS manages on your behalf, or you can provide your own key. Either way, like they're going to be encrypted at rest. It's just a matter of like how you want those encrypted. And we'll click next. So we'll just hit. So here's that part I talked about where you like your repo can only technically have a repo can only technically have one external upstream repository. You can have up to 5 or 10. You can have more like we call internal upstreams, which are like other code artifact repositories. So what we do is if you create a repository and you say, I want 3 or 4 external upstreams, we'll create separate repositories for you and then kind of do the plumbing to connect those. Because code artifact domains deduplicate packages across an entire domain, this doesn't cost anymore. So we said we want to create one repository, and it created 2 extra ones. It's not going to cost you 3 times as much as just having the one, because your build per byte stored, per bit stored, and it's deduplicated across all 3 of these. So it costs the same amount. It's just a technical constraint that like this graphic tends to be a bit confusing about why are these other things created. And it helps with some of the logic needed to figure out, do I what order should I look for upstream things in? If it's not in this repository, where should I go to look for the upstream packages? And the rest of this is just a confirmation of the things we already said we wanted to create. So we'll say, okay, we'll create this repository. It'll also create a domain, and it'll dump us into the repo. Say, okay, now you're ready to go. It comes with connection instructions, so you can pick a package. So I had said we're going to use PyPy and NPM as upstreams, but you could put any, you could put Maven and Gradle packages kind of in here. And if you select one of these, pip and twine are the 2 tools needed for Python for putting and retrieving packages. So pip is for installing to pull the packages in, twine is for uploading, for sending them. And it gives you the command that you would need to run to make this work. So now we have the repo set up. Let's create like a very simple Python package and then publish it into Code Artifact. Actually, let me first copy this. And then I'm going to run this here. So this is just setting up pip on my local, this is my Cloud9 environment, which is our online IDE. And it's setting up pip in this environment. Actually, I'm going to create a virtual environment first, so I don't get any weird behavior.
I was just reading Ben Kehoe's Python setup guide. I think it was Ben's.
How do I put this? It is a great set. So if you have a laptop that you use for all of your development all the time, like you do need to be very vigilant about like keeping your system Python like clean, not installing random packages into it. I like to take it a step further and say like, for like on my laptop, I just don't do any development. I do all my development in a Cloud9 environment. Then when I'm done with it, I just throw it away. So I can like, if I'm using a package that just doesn't play nicely with any kind of like sandboxing environment, virtual environments, pipenv, like these other things, then like I can do it in here and not have to worry about like doing any damage to my like system environment on my regular desktop that I use for my daily driver.
I gotta say too,
his articles.
Cloud9. Oh, that article is great. But Cloud9 is also a good tool for like consulting partner teams that are maybe distributed too, right? Maybe you don't have, you need a specific environment, right? Like you need specific tools installed. You can have an image that like you just have like as Cloud9 environment, right? Like just gets provisioned out for all your devs.
Yeah, and another thing, especially for like consulting environment, is that you might want to say, I need the consultant to have access to like a a beefier machine, a C5 16XL, some large machine, but it also has to be like inside of our network for access to our environment. Is that you can place an EC2 instance for that in any specific subnet that you want, and guarantee that it has the appropriate ingress and egress rules. And then when the consultant's job is done, you just delete the instance and it's gone. You don't have to worry about, mailing them a laptop that is configured with your software that you need for access. You don't need to open up ports to allow access in. You don't have to deal with any of that. You just say, okay, here's the environment. You create an IAM role. You trust them. You use IAM trust policies for them to assume a role in the account to either create or to use a Cloud9 environment that you have set up for them, and then they can just do their work and then leave when they're done. Which I'm not sure, is that like a thing that consultants talk about? Like we just show up and work and leave? Is that? I assume it's like show up and work and like get another contract is probably like more accurate.
Yeah, we maintain your software after that too for the rest of the term. I mean, you can even use like VPC peering stuff, right? Like, I mean, that's how powerful this is. I think a lot of people don't think through that, right? Like.
Yeah, you could do. So probably like personally, the problem I see with VPC peering is that like, how do I put this? How do I put this without making our 3 viewers fall asleep? Is that inside your VPC, you've got some like subnet of like addresses. Maybe it's like 50 or 100 addresses, or maybe you're like really ambitious. You're like, I get this entire private class B. Right, I get this whole thing. You can't peer with another subnet with another VPC if the subnets overlap. So then it's like, okay, well, like we could peer with you, but you have to like reassign all of your IP addresses, which like the consulting partner would probably have to change theirs, because you can't like go to a customer and be like, yeah, we'll like do work if you like change all your stuff first. I think private links are like slightly better, like it abstracts that away. So I think there's like a per hour charge on private links plus gigabits. I'm not sure what the actual like logistics mechanism is for setting those up between like different accounts, but that's generally like what I would recommend.
Cool.
What's going to DevNull? The DevNull meet? I don't know what this is.
I'm the DevNull.
Meet free. I get it.
My thing, man, is I'm the DevNull man. It's my whole belief system. I believe in DevNull.
This is part of it. Is it like a very like a Buddhist thing of like there's no attachment? Like attachment only brings you suffering. So if you just if everything is DevNull, like you're not attached to anything, it's just
send it to the DevNull in the sky. That's my philosophy. My life philosophy.
Cool. So we have this virtual environment. On that note, let's go back to color. So we have this virtual environment we have set up. So now we're going to configure pip in this environment to point to code artifact. This will like do some stuff for us automatically. If you don't trust this command from the AWS CLI, or you want to like do it manually, there is, like I said, you get this auth token, and then you can use pip config to like set the actual values that you need to. This command does these two for you. It's just a matter of like people might have different use cases where they want to use the two commands kind of interchangeably. So once that's set up, okay, cool. So we have a token that allows it. So I should talk about the token for a moment. So Code Artifact knows and understands and speaks IAM, right? It's an AWS service. It speaks IAM. It speaks CV4. On your machine, you have pip, which is a client-side tool that doesn't know or care about IAM or SigV4, right? It speaks, I think, HTTP basic auth. It's probably in like either in a header or in a part of the URL. It's how pip like passes credentials back and forth. It's probably a header since those are encrypted. And like you need some way for these two to communicate. So what this command that we just run does is it says, hey, Code Artifact, like I have this access key, secret key, and token. Can you, take these, I make some requests. I prove to Code Artifact that I'm in possession of these things, so without actually having to send them, and say, can you give me something that I can like hold on to as like a bearer token that I can give you later, and you'll know that it came from me. That is a token that my local client understands, pip in this case, which is this credential. And let's see if I can't.
Is it a JWT token?
It is not a JWT. I think it's like, I call it a token just because I think it's a username and password. Because it's under the hood, it's just using like HTTP basic auth to authenticate as part of the PEP that the PIP. Yeah, say that 5 times. Yeah. The PEP, I think it's 503. One of the PEPs that defines PIP says or describes what the auth would look like. So now we have that. So I can say pip install, what's your favorite package? Let's say NumPy. Everyone loves NumPy.
I like that Dominoes one. There's a Dominoes package in Python that you can order Dominoes with.
Okay. Okay. I thought I meant like the game Dominoes, like Bones. I was like, that would be cool.
Like pizza.
Oh, I wonder what this will do if I say pip install. So it's asking me to upgrade pip. And I'm just curious. I know it'll work. I'm just curious so what this did is that my repository, like this is what it looked like when we started. Like there are no packages here, but I just installed those 2 NumPy and pip. And if we refresh the page, we'll see that it now has NumPy and pip in here. Okay. Those look like do they not have any, pip I understand it not having any dependencies, right? Because like it's a very core feature, dependencies. Oh, I guess it has no. That is strange. Okay. Oh, probably vendors dependencies, kind of like Bodo does, where it includes its own dependencies with itself, so that you don't have to worry about like fetching those as well, like recursively fetching those. So let's try pip install, one that I know doesn't vendor. Oh yeah, here we go. So this is looking in this index, and you see that it's like password is kind of like blanked out. Is this text too small?
You make it maybe one more. Yeah, just one more.
Yeah, so just look real closely at my password right here. So this is the mechanism for like basic auth, where it's like a username : password at. Git uses something very similar for making these requests. And that's what it swapped my I call it a swap. I didn't actually send the request. I didn't actually send the tokens. I just was able to do a thing that proves that I have the token. And in exchange for that, I was given a username and password, which it's hidden so it doesn't show up in my logs. But we see that like when I install this, it actually installed, assuming that's 5 because there's 5 progress bars here. And if we come back to the repo, we will see that it installed all 5 of those should be present. So we see that when I installed request, it also brought in URL lib, IDNA, I don't know what that is, character det, and certify. So this is like it recursively went through and got all the dependencies that were declared that were needed, and pulled those in as well. The first 2 that I brought in don't make much sense because they don't have any dependencies. Pip makes sense because it's a very core part of the language. You don't want it having dependencies because then how would you get those dependencies? And NumPy, I have no idea why. It's probably some weird C++ optimization tricks. So we have like our first repository, and we can pip install. Another thing that we could do now is, let's say that I have this repository and I say I don't want anyone else to install it. If the package is not in this repository, you can't use it. If it's not in here, it does not exist. So you can remove, disassociate. Okay. So now there are no more upstream repositories. So let me demonstrate that. So if I go to make turn test, cd test, Python, make another virtual environment. And if I say, I do have to set up the connection instructions, I don't think those are applied at the system level, just in case. So if I said pip install requests, this will work because those were already in, it's using these cached ones from the repo. But if I said pip install Dominoes, Is there an E in Domino's? No? Yes.
No, I don't think so.
No E. Okay.
What's that
So
time?
I can't find. What's the package? Wheel. All right, that's another one, right? So to say I can't find these, and this exists in pip, like these are in like regular PyPy, but it's because it's only looking in it's only allowed to look in this one repository, and I've disassociated the upstream repository. So I've said if it's not in this repository of packages that are allowed, you can't do it. So people can install like we saw with requests up here where it did work, and then we tried to install something that wasn't in the repo and it didn't work. So that's a way that it's a good like. What's that?
It's very rude to block me from installing the Domino's library.
It's we should raise a complaint with the I guess there's some kind of like not HR but like food I don't know, CR, culinary relations resources.
Yeah.
Food resources.
Okay.
This can be helpful when like a company's like, okay, like we've got developers just like doing whatever they want. They're installing from pip, they're installing from npm, like they're pulling packages from wherever. I have no idea what's going on. Maybe you have like a transit gateway with like Splunk or some kind of like network monitoring tools that you can like kind of observe this. But it's like that's a very low level tool that you're trying to say. What you really want to say is like don't install some package or don't install stuff from here. You can do the heavy hand thing and just like black hole that domain. So any request to that domain just goes into some empty route table. So what we see like customers have done is they'll say, okay, let customers create an upstream, have people reinstall their applications as they normally would. After like a week or 2 weeks or 10 weeks or some amount of time, we're going to turn this off. So we can pull in all the packages that people are already using so we don't like break anyone. Then we turn off the upstream. We say, okay, if you haven't pulled in this package in the past 10 weeks, you probably don't need it that much. So like you need to like file a ticket to get it authorized. And then you can have like a security team or some automated tool like Sneak or White Source go through and scan your packages and make sure that you haven't inadvertently brought in something that was potentially malicious.
That's super cool. Shout out Sneak, actually. They'll be on the show in just a few weeks.
Nice. Is it Jay? Is Jay the one coming in?
Jay's not coming in, but I have been talking with Jay, and we miss Jay at AWS. But, maybe he'll be back one day.
All right, so now let's see, we're in the test folder. Let's do this one. Actually, I'm going to deactivate. And now I'm going to make a package and I'm going to publish my own package. So what we've shown so far is like how to like pull in packages from like the public PyPy and then use them. What we'd like to be able to do is say, that's great and all. This protects you from things like the left pad incident where someone on NPM was like, I don't want my package being used for whatever it was, like whatever the reason was, and then just like depublished it. And then NPM had to make a very difficult decision, and they ended up deciding to like republish the package after the author had removed it, because it was like used in like so many like thousands and thousands of packages. People use this term too much, but it broke the internet, right? Like nobody could build anything because everything depended on this core package. So Code Artifact will protect you from that because like these packages are now like here in Code Artifact. If PyPy were to go down, if NPM were to suffer some kind of power outage, there's periodic I think there was an outage in Europe a while back. I think it was an internet-related outage. I don't think it was NPM related. But like you're like insulated from that here because you have this in essentially you've stored those packages in Code Artifact, which is using S3, which is using a multi-AZ, like highly available thing. So these packages will always be available.
Not that I'm advocating this at all either, but it sounds like this will protect you from something that I've experienced in companies that I've worked for where you get dependent on a library and then, I don't know, maybe that library is discontinued or completely rewritten or, like the older versions are no longer available, but your software still needs to run, right? Yeah,
so some of the package management systems, like I think NPM in PyPy, they'll throw an error if you try to, if you publish a package with a specific version and you try to republish it, and like if you try to republish anything with that same version, they'll be like, you can't, like it's already been published that version. And it makes sense. It's like a security thing. If you've done all this work to check and make sure this specific version of this package coming from PyPy, meets whatever your requirements are, and then someone goes in and changes that, like how would you detect that? You'd have to like keep the hashes yourself. You'd have to compare them, which everything publishes their hash, but like who really, like as a random developer, like I don't think I've ever actually compared hashes, mostly because like I would probably get a different hash value and then not know, like, is this malicious? Unlikely. Or like, did I use the wrong hashing algorithm? Or did I not use the right padding bits on it? Or like, oh, like I most likely did this wrong. Like I don't have enough confidence in like my ability to hash something correctly to like verify this. If I were in like a security role or some of these other roles, like there are tools that'll do this, that can like do this for me. Like this is like the definition of undifferentiated heavy lifting. They're like, I'll just let someone else do that.
You don't want to
I'm not sure about like, yeah, checksum. I think checksum's like a specific type of hash, right? Like it equals like a specific value, I think.
MD5.
I don't know. This is.
Or is it SHA-1? Or is SHA-1 the same thing as MD5? These are the things.
So those are different hashing algorithms. I think a checksum is a specific type of hash, I believe. So a hash is a one-way function that takes like some data and makes it into like a smaller representation of that data. I think a checksum is like a specific type of that has some specific property that you can then like ensure some kind of integrity from. I'm way out of my wheelhouse on this, so I'm not going to say anything and undermine my credibility. This is when I would go and spend like 4 days on Wikipedia, just like reading about checksums. Okay, so I'm going to, how do I do this? Yeah, I'm just getting this set up. Okay, so I'm going to create a package called like my package. Make there. Like all good packages, we need a README. Like all good packages, I started with an incorrectly named README.
Readme.
Yeah. I guess I could move. Is that the
move it? Yeah.
I don't even know why I'm doing next. I'm just gonna like double click on it and be like, hello. Normally you'd put like some like build instructions in here, how to build this, how to contribute, where to find other information, kind of like all that stuff. Another all good packages should have is a license. Usually, I think the Pythonic way is just a file called license for like pip packages. Let me find an example. Oh, here we go. I think this is I don't know what this is. This is just like a regular, I think this is the Apache license. I hadn't really leave all this blank. It's just a sample app. That's not required. It's just like good practice to like have a license in your file. A lot of software, like there are tools that automatically scan licenses in software to say, reject anything that's not, MIT license, or reject anything that's not Creative Commons 3 or some like specific requirements based on what their business is or how they plan on using it. There's some like, copyleft licenses that require you to open source it if you use it. Some commercial entities try to avoid those. So just having a license file like helps with that. Python also supports the ability to like declare your license like in the setup, which tools can parse. So I'm also going to create that, touch setup. .py, and I think I have a sample app here somewhere. I'm like super paranoid about my headphones because my office is in the basement where there's a lot of spiders, and I can't tell if it's like I'm getting warm and like there's a little bit of sweat going down my ear, or if there's like a little spider going down my ear. So it's every time I feel like a tingle on my ear, I'm like, this is it. Like I'm about to become Spider-Man.
We have so many spiders in our house too. We moved out like into a suburb north of Austin, and I've never experienced this many spiders in my life. Uh-oh, spiders getting me.
No, am I gonna get okay? So am I gonna get kicked off of Twitch? So I've got one of those like bug assault guns, right? So it's like this like pump action gun that you fill with salt, and it's for like it shoots salt. Like, really, I'm not gonna show it because I don't want to get anyone in trouble. Or it's probably not a polite thing to do. Just like show a gun on Twitch. But like it shoots salt, so it's basically like a very fancy like air compressed Nerf gun. But it just like decimates these spiders. Just like they come near my desk. It's just like psh. My wife will like yell at me because it makes like a very distinct pop when you like squeeze the trigger, and she's like, "What are you doing down there?" Like, I am exterminating.
The spiders are friends. Spiders are good bugs. They're not bugs. They're arachnids, I guess.
Spiders more than an arm's length away. Like, we're still in the age of coronavirus. Like, they need to keep 6 feet, right? Like, if they're more than 6 feet away, like they're good. If they're like on me, well, one, I'm not gonna shoot them if they're on me because that's gonna hurt. But like, if they're on very close to me, like we're not friends anymore. Like they've violated my personal space.
All right, fair enough.
So, yeah, this is a sample. I think I pulled this directly from a guide I read on the internet. I think that shows that your typical setup.py file. So it shows what version of Python is required. I'm gonna change this to 6 just because of the environment that I'm using. It says like there's this specific way that's defined in the PEP that shows this is an MIT license. This is how you define like licenses, operating systems, dependencies. So we can say like this requires requests. Right, so we're not going to actually use requests, but it's just a way of saying like it depends on that. So I know to recursively fetch those. Spiders as a service. That is nightmare fuel. I don't know who thought that was a good idea. Can someone ban that? No, just kidding. Don't ban them.
Never. I could never ban Janisky. Janisky's been like on every stream I've ever done. Janisky's trying to.
Nice. He's trying to get hired.
And get hired.
Yeah, he's trying to get hired.
Yeah.
He's got to get all these channel points. And then, cool. So this is like the basics of what's needed. We also need to like actually add in some like actual logic. All right. So we just close this or close README. Make dir. I think I'd called that a message of the day app. So I'm going to say files message. Touch message. This is like what I hate the most about Python is that like it requires a file with a very specific name of like this underbar init. One time I had only one underbar on here or underscore, and it took me like 4 hours to figure out why I wasn't building because it was missing one of the underscore. Like the name didn't match. The hash was not the same, and it was very displeased with that.
Is those two underscores, are they called dunders? Is that what that is?
Oh, I have heard people call those dunders.
Okay, I don't know a lot of.
Yeah, it's like double under. Yeah. I think that's in like if it's used for a like a variable or a method, like it's like super private. I think is what it means. And like one under is like kind of like discouraged from like peaking, but like we're not going to stop you. And I think that's like the two underbars actually like throw an error in most like newer versions of Python if you try to like directly access those from outside the class. It's like trying very hard to be like type safe, but without doing any of the good type safe stuff.
I'm not going to comment on Python. I don't have a horse in this game.
Like very clear, like types are good. Right? I mean, they have a place, and it's like no, like we'll never be a strongly typed language, and like he made the language, so he gets to decide that while he's the benevolent dictator for life. Another thing we need to do, like so, we do have this. I quickly created this when you weren't looking. So we just have a single message that just says. It just returns. It's the world's worst like message of the day because every day you get the same message. But we need to make sure that's right? So you definitely want to have like a test directory. tests are good. Like tests are generally accepted as, and then there's this weird like Python packaging stuff. So we have to make a few files in here. So we're gonna say touch tests, again, the init, touch tests. I always call this like context, and I'll show you why in just a moment. And then touch, and then our actual tests, which we'll say is test, and it needs to start with test underbar because of PyTest that we use to actually run the test. Message.py. Okay, so I've created, let me scoot this over a bit. 3 files in here, and then we're going to leave alone. Context, we are going to, it's like for the test file, it like sets the context. So it like inserts this value in the path so that when it goes to look for a specific file or a class, like it finds it and knows where it's at. Again, like I have no idea why this works or how it works. I just copied it from the internet one day and it worked, and I've just used this as like my default, like how to do tests in Python. People have all kinds of opinions on like how you should be doing this. Who knows? I mean, software engineers aren't known for having strong opinions. So like if they have opinions about this, it's best to just accept that they're right. And then we're gonna test this. So we're did I do this right? Oh yeah, so it takes a date string, which is weird. Date is a string and not like datetime. And then we're just gonna assert that like the thing we get back is this very descriptive message, which we've hard coded. So this should work, right? Like this is a test that should pass. And then, oh crap. Actually, is this gonna break? I forgot to install PyTest. I'm not sure if I set it up.
Oh, and you told us that we can't install anything.
Yeah, I was very rude. Okay, so I'm going to create an upstream.
Wait a minute. You have the authority to do this, but I don't, and it's my repo. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, when you watch enough Twitch to have as many channel points as I do, you can have the authority to do that. I call this it's like auth. Like there's like different methods, like types of trust, right? So like in blockchain, there's like proof of work, and others there's like proof of stake. This is like proof of channel points, right? So you have to like show that you have enough Twitch channel points. Let's try this again. There it goes. Okay, so it's working now. That's a lot of, oh no, permission denied. Oh, here's why. I did not, did I create that? I didn't create a virtual environment. So this is the thing that Ben was warning us about like mucking with the, your system path. So let me, Python 3. I have to say, your Twitch viewers aren't as helpful as mine. Mine would have spotted that problem right away before I even pressed enter. And they're like, wait, Richard, you're about to have a very bad day.
Hey, they're all here for you. They're not here for me.
Okay, so let's try this. Okay, so now we'll install PyTest, and we should just be able to run like the command PyTest, fingers crossed, and it passed. So it's our test passed, which is great. And it also gets to that of like when you create some functionality, create some tests. I have been known to just write functionality, like, oh, I'll test it later, and like put like a to-do and like the sprint like in story points, and then never creating the test. Actually, I do need to, for like publishing packages, there are a couple more that you need, which is setup tools, wheel, and twine. So we'll let this is just installing them via pip.
I think I actually
really boring.
You need Dominoes too. I heard.
Oh,
I
yes.
heard that. You need the Dominoes package for making the packages. Yep, you got to get the Dominoes one.
This would build Dominoes rate limit. What's rate limit? Is it limiting how much you can order Dominoes? That sounds like communism to me. It's like from each according to their abilities, to each according to the rate limit for hitting Dominoes. I forgot what the actual thing. Okay, and now that we have like the tools that we need to like build a Python package, and we have like our package here, like we should be able to just run like the Python setup tool. Like we're gonna run this setup.py and like build a distribution for it, and it spits out a bunch of text saying that's copied all these files. Yeah, directory is dist, so we should see it right here. So this is like the standard for Python packages of like this tar.gz file. So this is like the thing that gets published. And then
this is what we get uploaded to PyPy.
Yep. And then normally, so we're going to upload it to Code Artifact. So one thing that I hate about Python is that like in pip or in npm, you just use npm to like fetch packages and to publish them, right? Like both directions, it's the same tool, which makes sense. I need a dependency, here's a dependency. For whatever reason, in Python, they're separate packages. So pip is used to pull packages, twine is used to publish them. The names don't even like have a theme, or it's like, you know, kind of like types of chains for pushing and pulling, or types of saws that are meant for like push cutting and pull cutting. Just irritates me. So we have to go into the connection instructions for twine. So we did the pip ones before, and we're going to set this up for twine. And these commands are the same, so you could like hard code this command into like a build spec file for like code build for a CI system to publish it. There's no secrets in this command that we run. You can inject these values to the environment variables, the domain, the repository, fetch those however you need to. All this can be done via code build without having to like manually copy paste every time. I'm just doing that because, like I said, I wasn't prepared for today's session. And then now that we have this, let's go ahead and tell twine to upload this. Cool, so uploaded the wheel and the tar.gz file. So we should be able to go into our package. There should be a bunch more crap in here because we installed Dominoes, which brought all of its dependencies with us. But we should see a message of the day app. Message of the day. So this is the one we just created. Version 001 has been published. And this is like it pulls the README and shows you the README. So this is how I would like take a package and like publish it in like Code Artifact so that other teams that I'm collaborating with inside of my company can fetch this package and use it, and I don't have to publish it to like the real PyPy where potentially anyone on the internet can get to it. I believe PyPy or especially NPM have ways of having like secret packages that are published, but then you have to pay for premium support. It's still kind of like on the internet-ish, and you have to like manage like access to those separate from how you would manage access to other things. So the benefit of this is that you can reuse your IAM authentication to grant or revoke permission for people to interact with these packages using the same access control mechanisms, namely IAM, that you're already using for other parts of your application.
Yeah, I assume like your IAM user just then has to have access to a role that grants. How do you set up the actual access to get that package outside of?
So there's a button here called Apply Repository Policy that we have named very deceitfully. It's meant for applying repository policies. And then this is your we give you some examples for like how to show like here's read only and publish, give someone full access. I don't like that there's a star here. There's ways to like scope this to specific just npm or just Maven or just specific packages.
Oh, that's cool. So you can do it at the package level in one of these repos even.
Yeah, via IAM. So like the package has, yeah, I think I can try it. Trying to think of how I could like demonstrate that, because like a package ends up with an ARN, like a package has an ARN, so you can apply that ARN like in the resource and say it has like a specific syntax, which is probably in the docs, but reading documentation is for suckers and losers. So one thing, yes, you so one thing we mentioned before is like republishing packages with the same version. So let's like let's make a change to this and try to republish it to like be sneaky. So let's say like a very, what's a synonym for very?
Extremely. Extremely.
Extremely descriptive message. That's bold. Okay, so then we'll rebuild this. Actually, let me delete this. Just a lot of times, like I don't trust these things to like rebuild stuff to not try to be clever and be like, oh yeah, like this is already built. Like I don't need to do that to like save energy. So just delete it and rebuild it as like the turn off and turn back on again. So we've recreated this with the same version number, and let's try to publish it and see what happens. Yeah, so we get this conflict because it's a specific version. Let's try. That was rude. Oh, I guess I should spell verbose correctly. This is rude of me to. Okay, so the verbose tells you like this already exists, which is the version. I wonder. Let's see how clever I can be. Let's go way off on a tangent. So I'm just renaming the file. We'll see what happens here. I have no idea what's going to happen. This isn't like one of those like a baking show where like, let's see what happens when I know what's going to happen. Like I legit have no idea what's going to happen here. That worked? Is that like is that a new way of? It worked that it published. I'm curious what version it says it has. Did I just? Oh, interesting.
Does it have more versions there if you click on the more versions?
Well, it shows you the latest by default. So this, let me try. I didn't think that was going to work. I thought that it would like show version 02. Let's be a bit more punctual. So we just change that to an exclamation point so we can see this difference. Setup. Oh no, I don't know which one to do. Okay, let me delete these. And this is like way off script, like this wasn't like part of the original plan, and I'm probably wasting all your viewers' time. I'm just now very curious.
What happens if you do 2 again?
That's what I was curious about. I was like, I wonder if they're actually in. That could be a bug. And I'd like to avoid like showing bugs on the stream. Like the GM for Code Artifact is already a bit mad at me as it is. Pointing out bugs in his service on a stream with all 4 of our viewers would probably be a bridge too far. Okay, so it looks like they just kind of like go into the ether. Like I have no idea where this. That is weird. Okay, so let's. So they're just like dropped on the floor because like I can't like. That is wild. That is. Yeah, so what could possibly go wrong? Exactly. Like that's why I use these burner accounts because like if it like causes an error and someone's like that's illegal and they shut down the account, I haven't lost anything. So it looks like these are just like completely being dropped, which is weird. Let me go ahead and write this down. Note to self: ask Ishai why I'm dumb. Okay, so that's weird behavior. There's probably an explanation for this. I just don't understand. There's a pro tip. Okay, so we've published this. So now we want to like share, like grant someone permission to read this package.
Yeah, we had talked about, I don't know if this is where you're going, but we had also talked about like sharing it with another AWS account, which is often how, as a consulting partner, I will be accessing, you'll grant me some sort of cross-account role. So is that where you're headed?
That is exactly where I'm headed very slowly. So I've got this tool that I'm in a new one. Let's just 8500. I just want to make sure that, okay. So just to make sure there's no chicanery going on here, this is one account and this is another. Like they have different account numbers. If anyone ever asks, an account number is a string, not a number. It's an account ID. Anyone who tells you it's a number is wrong, and you're allowed to publicly mock them if they call it a number. And the reason we know this is because a leading zero has no meaning in a number, but a leading zero does have a meaning in an account ID, which means it's a string. Again, sorry, that's just my tangent. Let's do something really wild. Let's do cross account, cross region. What's that?
I said hot take over here.
Yeah, that's
Richard Boyd.
Let's do cross account and cross region. All right, let's go wild here. Why is this? Made everything tiny. Okay, so we'll call this like consultant. Low paid consultant, the best kind.
Best kind.
And because they're low paid, so they get a T2 micro, very low paid. They gotta stay in free tier. So this is gonna spin up an EC2 instance. This might take a minute. Like I created this account like moments before the stream started. Like we actually delayed starting the stream for a few minutes while I created this account. So there are some like anti-fraud mechanisms that can be triggered when you create a new account and immediately try to spin up EC2 instances. So hopefully this creates, if not, you just have to trust me that it works. Because I'm a very trustworthy person. I've never lied in my entire life. Like,
except
I've even, well, yes, no. It's like the 3 guards of like, I always tell the truth and I never tell, like.
That's right. One of these is a lie, 2 of these is the truth.
Yes. So it's a cross account with roles. So we're not going to like assume a role across account. I'm going to like directly trust the other account to like interact with this. So I don't have to like, because that creates like a weird coupling because like then this other, I wish I could change the color on this one. It would have to know about this other role. Like which role do I want to trust to like assume that it has to like kind of go, there's this like chicken and egg problem that happens when you get some of these like cross account role things. For me, I think it's easier when like a resource can just say, hey, I trust this specific account to like decide who should access this. Because like if I say, okay, only this other role, this other account is allowed to do this, by its very nature, that other account is like some other entity that like I don't have control over who's allowed to assume that role. So the account owner could just let anybody assume it in that account, which is the same functionally as just saying, I trust that account in general, and I trust that account to pick who can have this thing, right? So you're being very explicit about like, because if you say like, if you are, if I have a mix of like local roles that I'm trusting, like inside of this account and roles from other accounts, if I just have them like listed in like an IAM policy, it's hard to differentiate like what's a role in this account, what's a role in a different account. I'd have to like look at the actual account IDs and try to like differentiate that. But if I say, you know, I'll use a full role name for like this account and I'll use just the account ID for other roles, then it's very clear, like, okay, I'm implicitly trusting this other account, like whoever owns that other account. So on those types of trust, you'd put more conditions on there, like it has to be assumed via some service. It has to have some, I think, some kind of a key that's used for like SSO and like third-party tools. There's ways of like adding those constraints to that without having to be so specific. Because what also you do is if you say, I trust a specific role in this account, it binds the hands of that other account owner because they can't ever like delete that role. There are even times if they delete the role and recreate it, it technically has a different, there's this ID that's associated with it that isn't the same. So even though it has the same name in ARN, that there are some cases, specifically with Cloud9, where that like doesn't quite work. So that's just, again, I keep going on all these tangents.
You could still, even with associated, like create it, associations to multiple accounts.
Yeah. And there's like, we've seen cases where people do what we call like red-black deployments, where the role that's being used is like different because they name the roles like red or black based on like how they're flipping back and forth between them. And that role exists all the time. So there's several things, especially in API Gateway. If you say like, I want to trust this role, but they're in a different account and that role doesn't exist, it won't let you create that trust. Even though you're like, trust me, I know the role doesn't exist today, but it will exist someday. Kind of like when something, one day you'll find someone who loves you for who you are is like the biggest lie we like tell ourselves. It's like we're trying to tell API Gateway that it just doesn't believe us. It's been burned one too many times.
I see.
Okay, so what I'm going to want to do is, why won't this? Okay. Oh, this is zoomed way too in. I can't. So I'll go to artifacts, domain, repositories. Someday I'll write code with no bugs. If you don't write any tests, you won't have any bugs. Just gonna throw that out there.
If you don't write any code, you won't have any bugs either.
Oh, that's true. If you don't own a computer. Okay, so first I'm gonna try to just like directly connect to this repo from this other account. And access denied. Not allowed to perform, this get auth token. That makes sense. So let's go to the apply repository repos. Read only. Let's say read only. We want someone to be able to pull, but we don't want a consultant like publishing kind of crap to this. So I'm going to copy this. The best IAM policies are just copy pasted. I'm going to copy my account ID.
The best IAM policies are the ones that the CDK writes for me.
Yes, the ones I don't have to think about. That was a good plug for CDK. He should be at CDK DA.
Like I
okay.
Work in marketing or something.
That's true. So does this have? So this actually. So this get auth token operation isn't listed here. Let's see what happens. Interesting. Okay, so now we're going to do. It's not listed. Okay, so we're going to do something super dangerous. I'm probably doing this wrong. There's also a very strong possibility that I'm doing this wrong. So what I'm going to do is say, which now I technically don't need the rest of these, but I'm just going to leave them there so that when I delete this, they're still there. Okay, let's see if this works. And then we can kind of narrow it down. What?
I mean, this is me showing my nativity, but is it because you're putting root? You have to be logged in as the root account, which you should not be doing.
No, because that trusts the account, and then it relies on the account of the IAM principal. Let's try that. Let's see, maybe it's doing something funky. Because normally you could typically these are done like this, right? Where you just say I want to trust the actual account. Usually when you do this, when you save it, it replaces it with root.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's trusting the account, and then in the account I need specific permission to do that. But let's be very specific. We're going to trust the actual, so it's not just the role, it's this specific assumption of the role. So anytime the role is assumed, with this session name. And this is useful for if you have like a developer role, but you want to say, okay, only developers like of this type. So one team, when they assume a role, they always assume it with the session of like the developer role with the session name of the team that they're on or the team ID or some other thing. And then you can use that to like scope these permissions. This is probably not going to work too, but we'll just see. This is wild. Why is this not? My assumption is that, actually, let's try, let's be even more dangerous. I'm going to explicitly give this role permission to interact with this specific resource in code artifact.
Danger is my middle name.
Yeah, because it has like basically star policy on it. That's why it's because it's trying to like list all of the actions. It's just like 2 stars, but it like tries to like list every possible thing. Okay, so let's create a policy. Well, let's do an inline policy. Choose a service, code artifact, all actions. Oh, I wonder if so. I believe there are domain policies as well, and I bet that's.
Oh, so you can't even get to the repo.
Oh, that's why. All this is like I should have. If you're reading documents. Yeah, reading documents is for suckers and losers. Reading error messages is for what's a term for people like this? I can't even think of a term for like yeah. So this I didn't read the error message, so that's why. Okay, so which is like what I always do is make the IAM policy super wide and then realize I just had a fundamental misunderstanding. Yeah, and I should have known when that describe or get off token permission wasn't there. I'm like, that's weird. Let me just go ahead and put a star here to make it there. Okay, so let's copy this and it's gonna make me copy the whole thing. Okay. So I'm going to save this, and now I'm going to go back to my repository and like undo those like terrible permissions that were on there, and just assume that never happened. And then before this Twitch string goes live, we'll just edit that out. Nobody will ever know, and nobody could tell the IAM team that I did something so terrible.
We'll catch that in post for sure. Yeah. Definitely.
Nice.
That's the thing. That's the thing on Twitch, by the way. We're not broadcasting.
We are not. There's this weird like time dilation that happens. So we can answer questions that appear in real time, but this is actually recorded before this thing that will happen in the future called coronavirus happens.
So
you only know about that because.
Is that what you're saying? You have to have the policy for the domain.
You need 2 policies.
You have to list the repositories in the domain, I would assume. You probably have to have permission.
No, you need the domain policy to get the auth token that allows you to interact with the domain, with any repository in the domain. Then you need a repository policy to interact with a specific repository. But those are just policies on resources. Those aren't separate roles. Okay.
I see. Yeah, we're not using roles at all.
Before we start this. Oh, okay. I have a role right here that I am in this role. The only role that's being used right now is the role that I am right now, and we're just like trusting the account. So before I try this again, do we want to take any bets in the Twitch stream that's happening hours in the future after post, of whether or not this will work?
The over/under on this. What do you think?
Okay.
Richard.
I'm saying it's like 70% sure it'll work.
Okay, so I'll say it's 70% sure it won't, just to be the opposite.
Okay,
I'll do Price is Right. I'm going to the showcase.
Yeah, you want? How is this?
I'm spinning the wheel.
Did I not save it? Why won't this work? Oh man, Carl's gonna be so mad at me. Okay, we're gonna get wild here. Okay, so I'm gonna explicitly trust the session. Domino Showcase. Oh, why is this not?
While you're toiling, I'm gonna go start Googling.
Nice. You go read the docs.
Yes.
Oh, I wonder if it's.
The FAQ says I can do it. Let's see.
Trying some reverse psychology with karma. So if I name this policy, this will definitely work. It would ensure that it wouldn't work. So if I name it, this will not work. By a proof of induction, it must work.
Sorry, I'm laughing. I don't mean to.
Nice. Let's see. How do we? Can I not do cross region? That doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't I be able to?
Okay, maybe I found a blog post. Yeah, I found a blog post sharing repositories across accounts from John Standish.
John Standish?
Yes.
That guy. If this works, I'm gonna send him a very angry tweet.
Here, I'll drop here's the blog post that I found. There you go. Let's see. Live blog posting. Let's see. Yeah, and they say use the resource policy.
Oh, wait, let me. Okay, so let's edit policy.
Oh, here we go.
What you got?
No, it looks like you're making some progress.
Oh, I'm just replacing everything with stars. I kind of want to call Carl, like live on Twitch, like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire style, and be like, "All right, Carl, you're in the hot seat now. Like,
Make this work.
What am I doing wrong?" What am I? I'm not. I'm doing everything right.
You sound like me every morning when I wake up looking into the mirror. I'm doing everything right. What? Why? Why?
Well, maybe it's my CLI. Maybe my CLI is just terrible. Let's try something else. There are some like weird edge cases with Cloud9 that shouldn't affect it. Let's create a repository. Not in Oregon. We want to make this in Ohio. Wait a minute. Oh, wait a minute. did I? I think something's goofy here. Yeah, why is this US East 2? Because this domain is in US West 2.
Hmm.
Okay. And you know what happened?
What happened?
Watch this. You're about to, you see it? Do you see it yet?
Region.
There it is.
Oh, your CLI was in the wrong region.
Well, it's because I was like, let's do cross region, cross account. Like let's tempt the live demo gods and dare them to smite us.
You really, yeah. It happens to the best of us.
Oh, return a non-zero exit code. Oh yeah, this is probably because I don't have like a yeah, I don't have access to it. All right, so I do Python 3 m env dot. I'm gonna create a virtual environment. I think it's not. I have to run that as like sudo because it's like the system pip. No, not sudo. Source. Again, your viewers in the chat. Like, I was hoping one of them would have seen that.
Wow. Don't blame my viewers for your shortcomings. Come on. I'm protecting.
There it goes. Now we have this. So now I can say if I go to my message of the day, it tells you how to install this version. Copy this.
I just want you all to know, regardless of what Richard says, you all are the best viewers across all of the AWS channel because you're watching Howdy Partner.
Yep.
Yeah. So, no matter what Richard says about you, I love you. Thank you for being here.
It's true. I mean, maybe I was just being a bit too harsh based on what AM was saying before we went live about his viewers. I took that to heart when he was saying that.
Wow. Boyd is really throwing me under the bus. Okay. All right.
I'm just kidding. Okay. So this is how you generally when you're sharing resources, wait, people are getting paid. Who's getting paid? Wait, Bob's not allowed? Oh, why is Bob not allowed?
Rampage Wildcard said that you paid this person to be here.
Yeah, can I send them some of my channel points? So generally, if you're sharing resources across accounts, you would know to set the region appropriately.
Yes, but this proves that. So let me do a recap real quick. For anybody tuning in, you are watching AWS Howdy Partner, where normally we meet with partners from the APN or the AWS Partner Network, which includes all kinds of past guests that you could go and watch on demand if you just go down below to the video section. Right now, we are doing a special episode of Howdy Partner Build with Richard Boyd, who is not an AWS partner. Just let's make that clear. He could be, though, if he went and signed up on the APN page. You could anybody can be a partner. I'm a partner, even though I work here. So what Richard is teaching us about is how to build like a partner with Code Artifact. That's what we've been talking about today, which is a nice way to store libraries and packages for differing programming languages in a secure and private manner. Often when you're working as a consulting partner, you have to access some secure libraries that maybe the enterprise customer you're working with doesn't allow to be published to NPM or PyPy. So Richard just showed us how to actually share across accounts, across AWS accounts, access to
and regions.
Yeah, and regions. Don't forget the region. Yeah. Absolutely. And regions. Cool. So
Okay, so I'm going to go back in and I'm going to remove the stars from the domain and the repository policy to show that it works without egregious IAM violations.
Becky Weiss would be very ashamed of you.
That's why we're going to edit this, and then no one will ever know that. I imagine like a real like IAM like genius like Becky would she would have seen that right away and be like, oh yeah, you have the wrong region. You are very dumb. She wouldn't say that 'cause she's very nice. Like she wouldn't call me dumb, but she would think that. She's like, this person is not smart.
I mean, I don't think that about you. And Janice Q is right. I snuck in the Domino's Python package into the repo that Richard set up for me because I need access to the Python Domino's package at all times, by the way.
Oh, so I uninstalled this, and then it said it's still there. Interesting. Well, let me see if I put in some weird. Well, where did it? Let's see what this does. Oh no, I deleted pip. So this is what's weird about Cloud9 is that I was like, oh, let's just delete this folder and I don't have to worry about this anymore. This is where you would have just one, you would have done this on your developer machine. But the good part is okay, let me just delete this environment. I can just throw this away, and I will hire a high-paid consultant who knows not to delete their entire dist packages folder. So I think that is all I have for today. It's 36 after whatever hour time zone each viewer is in. Unless they're in one of the weird ones where it's a half time zone.
This is wonderful, Richard. Thank you. Thank you for this.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This is a blast. This is much better than my stream. Because my stream's on Monday, kind of morning-ish, and I'm tired. Oh no!
Well,
and obviously my environment's gone and all this is gone.
Yeah, but that's another plug for Cloud9, right? Like you just said, you could totally.
Yes, it allows you to be very dangerous in a sandbox environment.
Right, and you're not out for the rest of the week because you bricked your laptop. You're good.
Yeah, and if you break it so bad that even it affects the underlying EC2 instance, that you somehow damage that as well, I think AWS will send you an award saying congratulations. You'll get 7 channel points on Twitch.
Wow, 7. How many points do you have, Richard?
Oh, I have 6.5 thousand.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, you have 0 though. You traded all of those points in for your job, right?
Well, no, they didn't make me trade them in. They just asked how many I had. It's one of these things is oh, you have. It's like Stack Overflow credits, karma points, whatever those terms are on those. You get the different color leaves and crowns, whatever they have, but you don't have to give up your points to get that. It's not like a Chuck E. Cheese model.
Oh, really? It's not like tickets where you trade in the tickets for the prize.
No, it's just you have this. It's like a manometer that you fill. It's not tickets that you exchange.
You know what the E stands for in Chuck E. Cheese? I just want to ask this question too.
Eduardo?
No. Entertainment.
Entertainment?
His name is
Charles
nice. Entertainment Cheese. His middle name is Entertainment.
Charles. My dad's name is Charles, and my brother calls him Chuck just to irritate him. He's he worked in prison for a long time. Worked on a farm. Is a farm supply place. He's very very old school. Hates being called Chucky. So my brother does it all the time. And it's just like daring him to disown him.
Well, on that note, we have more shows coming up this month, the month of September. We had Richard Boyd with us today, teaching us all about Code Artifact and all the developer tools at AWS that you can use, both as customers and as partners. And Richard was kind enough to show us how, as a consulting partner, you might access a shared private repo in Code Artifact.
And as a bonus, you got to see how to do some live debugging.
You did, absolutely.
Nothing worse than you're watching a demo and everything just works. I truly just give up when I started throwing in the stars. That's when I was like, okay, like we've given up. Like that's just stars everywhere. We'll figure it out.
Up next Monday is a company called Here, one of our ISV partners. See, you're over here. Here, Here. They're going to show us how to build an interactive map for your application. So it should be very interesting. You should tune in. I know Richard will be there, if not in spirit, in chat, definitely.
Definitely getting more channel points.
Right. But yeah, anything you want to leave us with, Richard? Any parting words? What should people do to get started?
That's all I got. Oh, yeah, to get started. That's very good. This is why you're better at this than I am. So if you go to the Code Artifact page, Artifacts is kind of like it says getting started, but generally you'd get started with like a code commit or some kind of a Git-based repository system. I say Git-based, like there's also Subversion, but like who really uses Subversion anymore? Or like some of these other, CVS I think is another one. So there's that you could use to get started. Each of the services at the very bottom have a near the bottom, somewhere on the page, getting started, which has like a walkthrough of like basic use cases. And the benefit of these over the Twitch stream is that these work, whereas what we did on Twitch stream, I got a little too bold and it didn't work the first time. This shows you how to like get started with this, the CLI, the console, sometimes it's CloudFormation too if that's supported. So depending on the flavor that you want to use to get started, like they're all kind of listed. Oh, we do have CloudFormation support. So we didn't launch GA with CloudFormation support. Part of this is because there are thousands of different ways of building infrastructure, like thinking about how you do infrastructure, and it varies almost as much as the different types of businesses. They're like Amazon and AWS are really good at like Java-based microservices in an enterprise where you have enough resources to, kind of build custom tooling to address some of these things. And it kind of in a way blinds us to what much smaller companies, like how they build and develop. If there's like a very small bit of pain that's felt amongst all of Amazon's developers, it makes sense to invest 10 or 12 people to fix that problem, because on the scale of tens of thousands of developers, it pays for that team. We recognize that like if you only have 10 developers, in your company, you're not going to have your entire team fix some small pain point. So the way that very small companies work is fundamentally different than the way Amazon works and the way AWS works. And we try to like build products that work at both scales. But some of this, like when you create an API, it's a guarantee, it's a contract that this will always work. And it kind of boxes you in of like, these are the changes that we can make in the literally the last thing we want to do. It's the second to last thing we want to do. The very last thing we want to do is raise prices, which so we'll say they're tied. They're tied for last place for those two events, because I don't know which one's technically last. That we could sit there and say, okay, well, as a developer at Amazon, this is how I would build and use this thing. But then we'd like lose some insight into like how smaller developers are doing this. So we tried something new with Code Artifact where we created the CloudFormation definition as like a public preview. So it was the first time that a CloudFormation definition was made available via a public preview. And I'm gonna see if I can find this real quick while AM talks a bit more. Did he?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
So lost my
Yeah, did
video.
you turn off your video? Yeah, that's I was like, oh no, what's happened? Now everyone just sees the top of my head.
I'm back. Don't worry. Don't be afraid. I'll never leave you again, Richard.
Oh man, I'm scared.
What are you looking up? Do you need me to share your screen?
No, I'm gonna put it in the chat right now.
Got it.
So this is the first time that we've created a public preview definition. So this is what we're saying. We think that this is how the CloudFormation API should look for this service, but it's in preview, so we're still open to making changes. If someone says that's not going to work for the way I work because some reason, and we can still make changes. Whereas for every other resource that came before this, if you launch with a specific API, you're stuck with that. So API Gateway has something similar. The way that they fixed it is they have API Gateway and API Gateway v2 to kind of break free of the shackles of a previous version. There's other ways of addressing this, but we think that a good, strong public preview period is the best way of getting a lot of customer input into like what's the most robust way of doing this. So please feel free to check this out. It looks like people are already making commits to this, and it's open source. You can commit to it, you can make changes, you can propose changes to it, you can implement the change if you think it needs to be implemented in a specific way, send the pull request, have it reviewed, like full on open source.
Nice. Yeah. A few of our service teams have open source roadmaps that I follow pretty close. The containers team, I know, definitely do. I follow that pretty closely. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that you all are getting involved in that too. Well, cool. So go get started with Code Artifact. Go check it out. Also, Cloud9, obviously. I think that, Richard showed us a few ways that Cloud9 helps beyond. I mean, we didn't even mention that you didn't have to install any software at all. You didn't have to install the AWS CLI. You didn't have to install a version of Python. You didn't have to install.
I do install Dominoes.
You had to install Dominoes, which maybe we should talk to the Amazon Linux too.
That's thinking big. So I was going to connect you with the Cloud9 PM to get it included, but you're talking about put it in AL2. Make AL2 just include. Well, actually, that version of Cloud9 uses Amazon Linux 2012, so maybe it is an AL2. Like we don't know yet. Like you have to go to EC2 console and start an AMI and then start an instance with that AMI and find out.
There we go. Yeah. Okay, so be sure to check out our next episode of Howdy Partner next Monday, same time as this one, 2 p.m. Pacific, with Partner Here, where we learn about creating an interactive map and some other things, I'm sure. And then we'll also have an episode on Wednesday with Dynatrace. I think I'm on the episode with Here, but so you'll see me next Monday, but not Wednesday. I think that is Claudine, one of our wonderful hosts, and a new host, Gregor, I believe, will be joining us. His first show, so you have to be there for him, right? You gotta come and support somebody's first show. Anyway, so shall we wrap it up, Richard? Do you want to close it out like we close it out on all the Howdy Partners? We got three phrases that we can choose from, or do you want to offer one? I'm afraid to let you.
I'm trying to think of well, what are you like?
We've got
you pick your favorite outro, and then I'll say no, that's terrible, and then I'll just propose one.
Okay, we've got Giddy Up, we've got Happy Trails, and we've got Y'all Come Back Now. You hear?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of if I have a better like a cowboyish, like go on get, right? Like
get. Yeah,
like
that's a very
like GIT, like GIT, like go on get, like go on, go commit, get out of here.
Yeah, like how at the end of Harry and the Hendersons, they sent Harry back into the woods, like yelling at him, right? Get out of here. You know what I'm talking about? Harry and the Hendersons.
You ruined the ending. That's been in my Netflix queue for like 32 years. Like you just ruined it for me.
Yeah. Spoilers for Harry and the Hendersons.
Yeah, I've had that DVD on my like mail order queue from Netflix since like 1997.
Do you know what a family adopts a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch?
Yeah, Sasquatch.
It's
one of the like that commercial where it's like, oh, so what are you doing with your Bigfoot? He's like, my name's Kevin. You don't even know.
But you want to go on Git.
Yeah, go on Git.
I like it. I think we might add that into the rotation. All right, I'll count to 3, and we'll go on Git. Sound good?
We say it on 3, or it's like 1, 2, 3, then say it.
1, 2, 3, go on Git.
Okay.
That work?
Got it.
This is great television right here. Thank you, Richard. Again, if you have any questions, hit Richard up on Twitter. This is like Richard's job, is to talk about Code Artifact and CDK and Cloud9 and all these things. So please, if something is not working or you want something improved or you want something different, you gotta hit up Richard on Twitter, please. So I hope that's okay.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's what I'm here for.
Okay, cool.
Some people say that they pay me to do that, and I cash the check, so I guess I have to do it. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, a legally binding contract. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Go on,
Git.
We'll see you next time, everybody. Thank you.